Welcome back. I've got Rachel Lyubovitzky on the line. Rachel, how you doing?
Very good. How are you, Michael?
I am good. Really looking forward to this conversation. It's been on the schedule for a bit, so I'm finally getting to talk with you about some important stuff. So, why don't you share a little bit about you, and we'll jump into the conversation.
Perfect. Yes, my name is Rachel Lyubovitzky. I'm a CEO of Setuply, client onboarding and lifecycle management platform. I am a serial entrepreneur, so generally love to play in the B2B enterprise tech spaces. That's where the problems are the biggest and the opportunities are the biggest as well.
Oh yeah, I was in the dot-com era when I worked in IT many, many, many years ago. It's alarming how long ago it was, but even back then, recruiting and bringing on people and having it to be a great experience when you basically need to hire a bunch of people yesterday. And when you have that type of situation, it can be rushed, and not only for the candidate, but for the team, everybody else. And if you get onboarding right, you have a good chance of keeping that person. If you don't do the onboarding right, in all likelihood, the stats have shown, and you know this, that the retention is going to be impacted and the quality work is going to be impacted. It just has a huge ripple effect. It's the foundation of an organization is its people, and if you are taking care of them, it's going to make a big difference.
Absolutely. Uh, we actually focus even beyond people, focus on the customer onboarding, where ultimately businesses who are looking to bring in customers, especially in the areas with very complex onboarding like human capital management, recruiting, human capital management, ERP, fintech, regtech, onboarding process tends to be very long. In today's business climate, clients really want to experience the value as quickly as possible. On the flip side, you have onboarding team that is supposed to be doing the job even faster with more clients. So that's when things can get very difficult for them. If they're not using the right tools, they can get overwhelmed. And that's when you see turnover and these things you mentioned.
Yeah, you want your people to be able to take care of your customers, and if that's not happening, it's going to be a challenging situation. And onboarding customers is something that is so important because it's that initial reaction. Because when you're a customer and you are buying a product or service, when you feel taken care of, it leaves a lasting impression, whether it's staying at a particular hotel chain or buying a product or going shopping at a particular store. You know the difference. And even going to get a cup of coffee. You can go to a variety of different coffee shops. There are some that do a much better job of making you feel welcome, and that's by design. That's not accidental. That was, in the DNA of the organization to make you feel welcomed and nurtured and taken care of. And and you sense it may, and for me, it's something that I'm aware of. I pick up on it right away. When there's a great experience that I've had with an organization, then I'm going to frequent that organization or work with them or want to work with them if I can, because it's just, it's a better experience. It's not just a transaction per se, it's an experience. And in life, we remember the experiences. We don't necessarily remember the transactions.
Exactly. The kind of feelings, it tends to be, even for business consumers, a very emotional experience. You have specific needs, you have specific expectations, and for the provider to kind of align with you, understand what your needs are, what your goals are, and be there for you as you embark on a new journey, and try to make that journey align as closely to the expectations as possible. That ultimately drives a long-term relationship. You end up staying in that hotel multiple times, and I'm going to that same coffee shop again and again because of the positive experience that you had.
Yeah, and I've overpaid, especially when I'm just, doing a quick visit in San Diego. I'll stay at a particular resort. I've actually got my tea mug here. They don't sponsor my show, so I'm not gonna necessarily give them a pimp Konakai. But anyway, but I like it there. And they have always treated me well, and I've had fond memories of things. I first went there attending a conference, and I've stayed there several times since. I just because, but it's the experience that I've had there, and I, I think organizations, and I'd love to hear your thought on this, is they don't spend enough time thinking about the experience. They think about the transaction, and I get that. We make product, we make service, we make money. That's how business goes. But they'll make so much more money. And I see so many organizations truly leaving a ton of money on the table because they're not going that extra step to really make it an experience for their customers. So what's your thoughts on that?
Definitely agree. So this perception that I guess in the context of onboarding, that it is transactional thing, that it's a short period of time and a life cycle of a customer, that mindset kind of risks overlooking how critical that first initial experience when you walk in the door is, for the ongoing relationship. If you coming in, taking the hotel analogy, and a lobby looks shabby and nobody's looking at you, and you're being ignored, or you're basically being directed, hey, just go to that door over there, that's your room. That will stay with you. So taking a look at your first client experience beyond the sales, which sales is a whole other ballgame, but when you actually said, yes, I want it, I want to experience this, you walk in the door and thinking about what that experience had been up to now in your sales organization, and working to achieve the same continuity that they had come to expect in working with the sales part of your organization, and then continuing that process as they transition into client success. So being very deliberate in that initial approach to align with their expectations, make sure that those expectations are the same that were set for them during the sales process. And then ultimately working with them in very close collaboration to the finish line, to when they're fully onboarded and start experiencing the value, love the view outside their window, in the world of software, enjoying their new software product, seeing the actual positive business outcomes from having started to use that new software. Ultimately, that's what you're going to achieve. But in order to be able to deliver that kind of experience, you have to take a step back and say, okay, what does the team look like that is delivering that experience? What's their workload? What are the tools do they have at their disposal to deliver those experiences to the customers?
I love that you mentioned the workload because again, there's so many different components to delivering a service or software product or anything like that. Yes, there's a transaction component to it, but there's so many different pillars that are involved in it. And if you do those well, they work together very well. If it's very disjointed, then it creates a lot of confusion sometimes, even with internal staff as well as the customer. And clarity attracts and confusion repels is a quote that Carrie Oberrunner said to me many, many years ago. And it stuck with me because it's like you want things to be clear, both internally, but also from the customer experience. And if it's not clear to them, hopefully your team recognizes there's some confusion and you clarify some things and you walk them through. It's a lot like kind of hand holding people through an experience to and help them navigate. And even thinking about the hotel experience, I remember the first time I checked into that hotel, and we've all done that. We've stayed somewhere, and it's again, sometimes there's some banter, but it's usually pretty straightforward. But I came in, and the front desk person was basically teasing some of the wait staff because the wait staff was causing some delays and some things. It's like, Manny, you're killing me. And, Manny responded, well, I'm obviously not doing a good enough job because you're still here. And, everybody's laughing. And I remember that because it was like, she's shaking her head. It's like, it's like, what am I going to do with you? It's like, well, don't do anything because I'm going to complain to your boss. And he's like, Manny, we have the same boss. So it just, the banter back and forth, and it was loving because they're both smiling and laughing and all of that. That made you feel, because they included, the customer in that experience, was not a behind, and it was jovial and all that, but it was one of those things like, okay, this is a place that has fun. It's like, okay. And it just changed the temperature on that. And they still provided me with a room, still had the restaurant there, all the services you would expect in a hotel. But it was that made it just more human, I guess is a good way to put it. And in tech, we know that it's very fast paced. And sometimes they're afraid to slow down just a little bit to provide a better experience. But when you slow down and you do it right the first time, you're going to accomplish a whole lot more than if you rush through it.
Absolutely. I guess on the subject of kind of giving your team and empowering your team to take a step back from the daily grind. And imagine the hotel. I think it's an example that everybody could relate to. If you have an endless stream of customers walking through the door, you really don't have a lot of time to step back and think, hey, maybe we should open up a second desk. Maybe we should take the ones that have reservations in a separate line. We could start thinking about the experience, the enhancements, improvements. So being very deliberate and saying, hey, you know what, we are actually going to slow down as a team, take a step back, and invest that time to collaborate on the better ways to do things, so that all of us are able to actually have an occasional banter and have a fun conversation. It's a fun place to be, rather than it's a constant, never-ending crisis that one after another after another. You got to take a step back, kind of revisit, why are we here to begin with? What can we do to make it better? And leadership really has to take an active role in, hey guys, we don't have to do this. Let's take a step back. Let's take a break. Everybody, let's give it the time, so that people are empowered to really experience that and take an active role in speaking out and sharing good ideas for what they're observing.
And I saw the opposite of that recently within an organization where a very key individual, and I'm not going to name names because I think they listen to the show, so I don't want to isolate, but they'll probably connect the dots and know who I'm talking about. But ultimately, this key individual was, discussing different ideas with ownership on how to improve some deliverables that they did. And the main owner of this organization was pretty much coming up with every reason under the sun why it wouldn't work. And I think that person in that particular situation, and I could analyze it a lot of different ways, but I'll put it this way. I felt that they were very close-minded on it and not open to at least giving it a try, because if you don't try it, of course it's going to fail because you're not going to do anything with it. But the ideas that were coming from this key individual was, and me hearing it, understanding the information that I had from it, it's like that seems like something worth trying out. But the owner was not interested in any of it, and in looking at that experience, good poker face by this individual, but I could tell that they weren't overly pleased with the response that they were getting from ownership, which then creates a potential environment where that key person is either A, going to check out, which is not good, B, leave, also not good, and or C, which is kind of a combination of checking out, they're just going to stop offering ideas. And all of a sudden, the quality of what they offer is going to stay stagnant, or obviously it will decline. And so I've seen it in organizations where that happens, and I know you've encountered it too in the work you do. How do you change the tide in a situation like that?
It sounds like the interaction you were observing, the owner was a little bit defensive, a little bit on the defensive, and kind of like, hey, that's our hotel. We know how to run things, but ultimately, at the end of the day, the customer is the one that is going through the experience. They are a vital key to really provide insight into what it feels like to stay in those rooms, what it feels like to take that elevator and everything like that. So listening to the customer feedback is absolutely critical to helping deliver experiences that would make them happy, make them come back, make them share the good word. In the context of Setaply, our customers are a critical part of our product mission and vision. We meet with them consistently. We open up avenues for them to provide feedback in multiple ways, and it's kind of interesting to see a pattern evolve in that uh, a lot of our customers have this incredible vision in kind of seeing the big picture and saying, hey, if we had these additional features, changed the certain interfaces and whatnot, that could impact other clients like me. So they're not looking for it to just improve their own individual experience. It's amazing to see them say, hey, this could impact the entire industry if we handle certain things differently. And ultimately, customers is what makes these things come alive, them using it, them benefiting from it. So yeah, I cannot imagine doing it any other way. There's only so much that we know. We're not the ones staying in our hotel room all day long, right? The travelers are. They know best. So yeah, definitely something to think about when you're in a context of, for example, business software, understanding their goals, expectations early on, and continuously polling them. What do you feel like? How is it feeling now? If you were to try certain things differently, what would you do to help them open up and provide new ways for you to delight them?
Yeah, it's going where the work is. It's using lean methodologies. It's like, okay, where's the work? Okay, what are you seeing? What experiences you're having? What would make this better? And those people that are experiencing are going to be the ones that are going to offer up ideas that, potentially could be game changing for an organization. You think of all the products and services of huge corporations that have shifted and made different things that we just, take for granted today. Well, at one point they didn't exist, but they came up with an idea, whether it was by design or accidental or a suggestion from a customer that said, it'd be nice if this had this. And we see it in technology a lot, and we're seeing it especially now with a lot of the AI plays out there. You're seeing a lot of these organizations, and it reminds me of the startup days back in the dot-com era, where people are like, yeah, we'll do that. We can add that. We can add that. And I know how this is all going to play out. Maybe I'm being pessimistic, but one of my favorite quotes is from the late Detroit Pistons head coach Chuck Daly, and he shared this after the Pistons beat a team by like 35 points. It was like an absolute blowout of a game. And after the game, Chuck is just ripping his team like they did this, they didn't do this, they missed this, they missed this. And finally, a reporter goes, Chuck, you beat him by 35 points. Why are you so hard on him? And he says, a pessimist is an optimist with experience. And seeing what the AI play is, we're seeing all these companies that are adding all these bells and whistles and all that. And working in the industry, that a good number of them, unfortunately, probably won't last very long. They'll last a few years if best, and then they're going to go away just because the nature of things and cost of doing things and innovation and usually there's a handful of players that survive and thrive, and some of the really good ones unfortunately kind of spin out and just kind of goes that. So, but in the middle of it, it's an absolute blast because you these fun toys to play with and tools and all that other fun stuff. But again, it's that customer experience. It's like these companies, I've noticed anyway, are, I participate in some of the forums and you're like, yeah, we'll add that Q2. Okay, that's gonna be Q4. They're like, it's almost like a wish list where anything you ask for, they're gonna do for you, which it's like, okay, eventually it's going to catch up to you. But in the meantime, it's fun to ask for things and just automatically get it. It's like an endless supply of candy, and people just feed you quarters, and you're like, okay, we're good. We're good. So, in closing, where do you see things, over the next few years? I mean, this world is so crazy and is ever changing. But what are some things that you're seeing in your organization when it comes to the onboarding, the customer experience, and all that that's giving you some hope?
It's very, to your last point about AI, we are at a fascinating point in time where this amazing sidekick that helps in just about every aspect of personal and professional lives is now so readily available. So we are going to see a lot higher utilization of AI, ML, machine learning technologies to eliminate just about everything manual, redundant from our day-to-day lives. And ultimately, I'm an optimist at heart, allowing us to engage with each other in a B2B setting in a much more meaningful ways. To maybe take back to some of the typical ways that onboarding reps spends their time. Oh, I got to get this file from this client. I got to email this guy for a reminder. I got to complete this form. All of that will be done by technology that will take care of reminding and staying on top and adding things to your calendar, so that when you get on the phone, it's not going to be, hey, I reminded you 3 times, or is it? It's going to be, hey, what great things do we want to talk about today that we want to accomplish? Completely change the dialogue, and ultimately you're going to see a lot faster, better outcomes for both sides of the equation, both for the providers that can engage and deliver what the customers are looking for, and for the customers who are going to get it faster. So I'm looking at it in a very positive way.
Yeah, I am too. And I think, it amplifies the human to human time, where we're just focusing on our human conversations and interactions and letting the technology take care of the administrative side of things. It streamlines it, and even in like using healthcare as an example, with patient visits and all of that. If AI can document all of the things and the interactions, so the physician or the healthcare provider can, spend some real good quality time talking with the patient and back and forth, I think it's going to improve outcomes. And that's just one example, but I think every sector is going to benefit from it. So, Rachel, I love this conversation. Where can people find out more about you and all this amazing work you're doing?
You can check out our website, www.setuply, like set up easily, enjoyably, setuply.com. And for folks who are potentially exploring, learning more about everything onboarding related, we actually have a conference coming up in October in Boston. So anything and everything from practitioners, experts to cutting edge tech, it's a great place to go to find out about onboarding, customer onboarding.
Perfect. And I'll have all that information in the show notes. So, Rachel, thanks so much for your time today. Love the work that you're doing and continue to get success. And thanks again for being on the show.
Thanks, Michael. It's been a pleasure.